The ultimatum. The holographic projection of Grand Arbiter Zex Kalar materialized in the center of the United Earth Council chambers, his eight-limbed silhouette towering over the assembled human representatives. His exoskeleton gleamed with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with his words, a biological display of dominance typical of the Arthax, the founding species of the galactic hegemony. Humans of Terra. The Grand Arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber, a cascade of clicks and chirps perfectly translated by the neural interfaces worn by each council member. For 73 cycles, your kind has been permitted to exist on the fringes of civilized space, developing your primitive technologies and expanding to your neighboring planets. President Amara Chen sat motionless at the head of the semicircular table, her face betraying nothing of the rage building within her. Beside her, Admiral Marcus Okafor, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, maintained an equally stoic expression, though his hand had moved almost imperceptibly toward the secure communication implant behind his ear. The Hegemony Council has determined that this period of tolerance has reached its conclusion. Zex Kalar continued. Terra now occupies strategic importance in our expansion plans for Sector 9. You will submit to Hegemony Authority, surrendering your military assets, providing access to your resource extraction operations, and contributing a labor contingent of 10 million citizens annually for hegemony projects. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as councilors exchanged glances. Vice President Dmitry Volkov leaned toward President Chen, whispering something that caused her eyes to narrow fractionally. You have 48 Earth hours to signal your compliance, the Grand Arbiter concluded. A hegemony battle group approaches your system to facilitate the transition of authority. Resistance would be. His mandibles clicked in what the translation software interpreted as amusement, inadvisable. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. President Chen stood slowly, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. The council chambers will be cleared for an emergency session of the Security Committee. We reconvene in 30 minutes. Deep beneath the Himalayan mountain range, in a facility whose existence appeared on no official record, 12 individuals gathered around a circular table that projected a three-dimensional tactical display of the Sol system. Red indicators showed the approaching hegemony fleet, 67 vessels of varying classes, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. They've dispatched the third subjugation fleet, Admiral Okafor stated, manipulating the display to zoom in on the lead vessels. By conventional assessments, they outmatch our visible defenses by a factor of 8. Conventional assessments, Dr. Leila Sharma, director of the Aurora Project, emphasized the distinction. The diminutive scientist's fingers danced across her datapad as she transferred information to the main display, based on what they believe we possess. Defense Minister Han Jingyi studied the approaching fleet's configuration. This isn't a negotiation force. This is a conquest formation. The Grand Arbiter never expected us to comply willingly. No species ever has, Foreign Secretary Gabriel Santos added. In 79 recorded instances of hegemony expansion, every society that submitted to initial demands was eventually subjugated completely. Those that resisted openly were made examples of. President Chen's expression remained calm, but her eyes hardened. Options. Conventional military response would result in catastrophic civilian casualties, Okafor replied. Their weapons technology, as far as they know we understand it, could eliminate our major population centers within hours. And diplomatic channels? Chen asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Closed, Santos confirmed. The hegemony has bypassed all established diplomatic protocols. This is their endgame. They believe we're too isolated to have any meaningful allies. What they don't know, Dr. Sharma said quietly, is exactly how much we've been preparing for this moment. She looked directly at the president. Aurora is ready. A tense silence fell over the room. You said we needed another 6 months, Vice President Volkov said, his accent thickening with stress. Sharma's lips curved in a slight smile. I always build in a safety margin. The system is operational at 97% efficiency. More than enough. President Chen studied the tactical display for several long moments, watching the red dots inch closer to Earth. For almost a century, humanity has known this day might come, she said finally. Since our first tentative steps into the galactic community, we recognize the pattern of hegemony expansion. We've hidden our true capabilities, appearing cooperative while building our strength in secret. She turned to Admiral Okafor. Is Phoenix Squadron in position? Yes, Madam President. All 12 vessels are maintaining position in the shadow of Jupiter, completely undetected by hegemony scanning technology. And the Sentinel network. All 5,000 satellites are in standby mode, cloaked and ready for activation. General Yinlai, commander of Earth's Spatial Defense Force, reported. The moment we give the order, they'll form a complete defensive envelope around Earth and our colonies. President Chen nodded, then took a deep breath. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time we showed the hegemony exactly who they threatened. Admiral Okafor, you have authorization to activate Protocol Prometheus. Okafor straightened, his hand moving to the neural interface at his temple. Authentication code. Chen Alpha Thunderbird Omega 73. Confirmed, replied the calm, synthetic voice of Gaia, Earth's quantum artificial intelligence. Protocol Prometheus initiating. Defense grid activating in 3 minutes. Across the solar system, hidden factories on Mars, Europa, and Titan that officially produced civilian spacecraft began reconfiguring for their true purpose. Beneath the surfaces of a dozen moons, weapons platforms that had been developed and hidden for decades powered up. In the asteroid belt, thousands of autonomous combat drones awakened from their dormant state. Transmit our response to the hegemony, President Chen ordered. Make it simple and clear. The message Earth sent back to Grand Arbiter Zex Kalar contained just 4 words. Humanity declines your offer. Aboard the hegemony flagship Inevitable Dominion. Zex Kalar's compound eyes flared with bioluminescent anger as the human response appeared on his command console. They refuse. Fleet Commander Vorkazar hissed in disbelief, his reptilian features contorting. Their defensive capabilities are negligible. All species resist initially, the Grand Arbiter replied, mandibles clicking in irritation. It establishes the proper psychological conditions for their eventual subjugation. Begin the standard approach. Target their orbital defense platforms first. Let them watch their pitiful defenses crumble before we escalate to population centers. With pleasure, Vorkazar growled, turning to his tactical officers. All vessels, primary weapons free. Target Earth's visible defense satellites. The first volley of hegemony energy weapons lanced toward Earth's orbital infrastructure, and then something unprecedented happened. The beams struck an invisible barrier 100,000 kilometers from Earth's surface, dissipating in spectacular, harmless displays of light. Simultaneously, thousands of previously undetectable satellites decloaked, forming a perfect sphere around the planet. What is happening? Zex Kalar demanded, rising from his command throne. Before anyone could respond, new contacts began appearing on the tactical display. Hundreds of them, materializing from seemingly empty space around the hegemony fleet. Unknown vessels decloaking in attack formation. The sensor officer shouted, their voice rising in panic. Reading energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Impossible. Vorkazar snarled. Human technology is not capable. His words died in his throat as the first hegemony destroyer erupted in a blinding flash of energy, split cleanly in 2 by a weapon, the likes of which none of them had ever witnessed. On the bridge of the EFS Artemis, flagship of humanity's Phoenix Squadron, Admiral Sarah Chen, the President's daughter and Earth's most decorated space warfare commander, smiled grimly as she watched the hegemony fleet's perfect formation dissolve into chaos. All Phoenix vessels, execute attack pattern Epsilon, she ordered calmly. Target their propulsion systems and weapons arrays. Let's demonstrate to our unwelcome visitors exactly who they've challenged today. The 12 Phoenix-class warships, each a masterpiece of human engineering hidden from the galaxy for decades, moved with impossible speed and precision, their quantum-shifted hulls allowing them to phase partially out of normal space-time, becoming nearly impossible to track or target. In Earth's command center, President Chen watched the tactical display as a third of the hegemony fleet erupted into expanding clouds of debris within the first 5 minutes of engagement. "They're retreating," Admiral Okafor reported, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from his voice. "Not yet," Chen replied quietly. "GAIA, activate the Jupiter gravity lens. Let's show the Grand Arbiter exactly who he's dealing with." As the hegemony ships attempted to regroup and retreat, a massive gravitational distortion erupted from behind Jupiter's bulk, humanity's greatest technological achievement, a device capable of manipulating the fabric of space-time itself. The retreating hegemony vessels suddenly found themselves unable to engage their faster-than-light drives, trapped in normal space by forces they couldn't comprehend. "Open a channel to the hegemony flagship," President Chen ordered. "It's time for some new terms." Shattering the stars. Grand Arbiter Zex Kalar stared in stunned disbelief at the holographic projection of President Amara Chen that now dominated the bridge of the inevitable Dominion. Around him, the command crew worked frantically to restore power to critical systems as the ship drifted, caught in some incomprehensible gravitational anomaly. "Grand Arbiter," Chen began, her voice calm but laced with steel, "this engagement has demonstrated several facts that the hegemony should consider carefully. First, humanity has not been forthcoming about our technological capabilities. Second, your fleet is currently at our mercy. And third, we have similar capabilities positioned near 17 key hegemony worlds." Zex Kalar's bioluminescent patterns flashed with rage and fear, an emotional display he couldn't control. "Impossible. Your species has been under constant surveillance since first contact." "Yes," Chen agreed with a slight smile. "Surveillance we were aware of and deliberately missiled. Every technological advance we publicly demonstrated was carefully calculated to appear impressive but non-threatening. Meanwhile, we've spent generations developing in secret. On a secondary display, tactical data showed the grim reality. 32 hegemony vessels destroyed, 29 disabled and drifting, and only 6 still combat operational but completely surrounded. You cannot expect the hegemony to simply retreat," Zex Kalar hissed, his translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of his native language. "We are the dominant power in 3 spiral arms. We command 10,000 worlds." "You rule through fear and technological superiority," Chen countered. "One of those advantages has just been eliminated. As for fear," she gestured, and the holographic display split to show real-time footage from across the galaxy. On 17 hegemony core worlds, identical scenes were unfolding. Massive human vessels decloaking in orbit, their presence sending shockwaves through planetary defense systems. "How?" Fleet Commander Vorkazar whispered, his reptilian features slack with shock. "How could you have positioned forces throughout hegemony space without detection? We've had faster-than-light capabilities far beyond what we revealed for over 40 years, Chen explained. "While the hegemony believed our ships required days to travel between star systems, our actual technology allows transit in hours. We've been mapping your territory, studying your defenses, and positioning our forces since before I was born. The implications crashed over the hegemony leaders like a tsunami. Their entire strategy of galactic domination had been built on technological superiority, a foundation now revealed to be illusory." "What are your demands?" Zex Kalar asked, his voice hollow. "First, the hegemony will immediately withdraw from the territories of all species who wish independence. Second, a new galactic council will be formed where all spacefaring civilizations have equal representation. Third, the practice of species subjugation and forced labor will end immediately. You destroy 1,000 years of hegemony order." Zex Kalar's mandibles clicked in outrage. "We would replace domination with cooperation," Chen corrected. You have 6 hours to signal your acceptance and begin implementation. After that, we demonstrate exactly what our Jupiter gravity lens can do when weaponized against planetary targets." The transmission ended, leaving the hegemony leaders in stunned silence. In the silent depths of interstellar space, far from the Sol system, Supreme Overlord Kazvorin, the true ruler of the hegemony, received the distress signal from the Third Subjugation Fleet with cold fury. For centuries, the Arthax had maintained their dominance through carefully controlled technological superiority, revealing advanced weapons only when necessary to crush resistance. "The humans have hidden their true capabilities," his chief strategist reported. "Our intelligence services have catastrophically underestimated them." "Then we shall reveal our own hidden strengths," Kazvorin decided, his bioluminescence pulsing with deadly intent. "Activate the World Breaker. We will make an example of Earth that will echo through the millennia." Throughout hegemony space, vast shipyards hidden within nebula and dead star systems activated. The World Breaker, a planet-killing weapon that the hegemony had used only twice in its 1,000-year history, began its awakening sequence. But the hegemony wasn't the only power with eyes in the darkness. Earth's quantum-entangled surveillance network detected the unusual energy signatures immediately. "They're bringing out their doomsday weapon," Admiral Sarah Chen reported to the Security Council, her holographic projection showing the massive hegemony construct powering up. "Exactly as predicted." Dr. Sharma nodded, unsurprised. The psychological profile of Arthax leadership suggested this response. They cannot accept a challenge to their dominance without maximum retaliation. President Chen looked to the austere figure seated at the far end of the table, a position that had remained empty during their earlier meeting. "Admiral Nakamura, is Operation Checkmate ready?" Admiral Hiroshi Nakamura, commander of Earth's Shadow Fleet, vessels that even most of Earth's leadership didn't know existed, inclined his head slightly. "All units are in position, Madam President. We've had the World Breaker under surveillance since we discovered it 18 years ago. We can neutralize it at your command. And the other 17 contingency targets, simultaneously, if necessary." President Chen closed her eyes briefly, the weight of the moment pressing upon her. When she opened them, her resolve was clear. The hegemony has ruled through fear for a millennium. Today that ends. Execute Operation Checkmate. Across the galaxy, human stealth vessels that had been positioned years earlier revealed themselves. Unlike the Phoenix Squadron's dramatic entrance in the Sol system, these ships, the most advanced in Earth's arsenal, struck without warning or preamble. The World Breaker, the pride of hegemony military might, exploded in a cascade of antimatter detonations before it could complete its power-up sequence. On 17 hegemony throne worlds, precision strikes disabled planetary shields and defense systems in coordinated attacks that left military infrastructure in ruins while avoiding civilian casualties. And throughout hegemony space, a message broadcast on all frequencies in the languages of every subjugated species. The age of hegemony domination is over. A new Galactic Council forms on Earth in 30 days. All species are invited to send representatives. The response was beyond anything humanity had anticipated. Not just resistance or acceptance, but jubilation. Throughout the galaxy, species that had endured centuries of hegemony rule rose up, their rebellions coordinated and supported by human tactical advisors who had been embedded for years, disguised as merchants, diplomats, and refugees. 3 weeks after what would become known as the Liberation Day, Grand Arbiter Zex Kalar stood before the hastily assembled Transition Council on Earth, his once proud posture diminished, his exoskeleton dull without its bioluminescent display of power. By authority granted by the Arthax Conclave, he announced formally, "I acknowledge the dissolution of the Galactic Hegemony and recognize the authority of the new Galactic Council." The words clearly pained him, but the reality was inescapable. The hegemony's military power had been broken in a single day, its empire of fear shattered by human ingenuity and planning. As he stepped back, President Chen took the central position, addressing the representatives of 87 formerly subjugated species. Today marks not a human victory, but a victory for all sentient beings who value freedom and self-determination, she declared. The new Galactic Council will not replace one empire with another. Each species will have equal representation, equal rights, and equal responsibilities. She paused, surveying the diverse assembly. Humanity kept its strength hidden because we recognized early that the hegemony would never permit a potential rival to develop unchecked. That necessity for deception is now behind us. All of humanity's technological advancements will be shared with Council members, not as weapons, but as tools to rebuild worlds stripped by hegemony exploitation. From the back of the assembly hall, Admiral Okafor watched with quiet satisfaction. The plan laid down by his grandparents' generation had worked better than anyone dared hope. Humanity had emerged from isolation not as conquerors, but as liberators, a position far more secure than any won through fear alone. On worlds across the galaxy, beings looked to the stars with hope rather than dread for the first time in living memory. The species that the hegemony had dismissed as primitive upstarts had revealed themselves to be patient, calculating strategists who had outmaneuvered an empire spanning 3 spiral arms. In the coming years, the galaxy would transform. The resources once directed to hegemony war machines would rebuild devastated worlds. Technologies long suppressed would revolutionize medicine, agriculture, and transportation. And at the center of this renaissance stood humanity, not as rulers, but as catalysts for a new age of cooperation and discovery. In the Himalayan Command Center, now repurposed as the headquarters for Earth's delegation to the Galactic Council, President Chen stood at the window overlooking the majestic mountains as the sun set. Was it worth the risk? Vice President Volkov asked, joining her at the viewport. A century of preparation, trillions in hidden resources, the constant fear of discovery. Chen smiled, watching distant lights of spacecraft ascending to orbit, delegates from a dozen worlds coming to participate in building a new galactic order. Look at them, she said softly. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy breathes free. Yes, Dmitri, it was worth every moment. Beyond Earth, throughout the vast spiral arms of the Milky Way, a new era had begun, sparked not by a species that had bowed to the Galactic Council's demands, but by one that had made the stars themselves tremble with their defiance.